Hey everyone, so it's been a while, actually more than a month since I've uploaded anything on this channel. And the reason why was because I've had quite a bad time. I fell into the pit of despair, so to say. There were some events that happened, and then I lost my routine. I just started with the no sugar challenge, but then I started failing that. I stopped with it, and I felt like a fraud because here I was making these videos about productivity, but in my own life, things were going frustratingly slow and I fell into old bad habits. So that really sucked and it was quite hard. Took me more than a month to come back. But that's what this video is really about. How do you get out of a depressive episode in your life? A time when it feels like nothing is going to get better. How would you get out of that? And how can you do it faster? That's what I'm going to be talking about today because I think it would help. I've learned definitely a few things that are going to help me in the future. So let's get started. I want to show you this graph. When we're talking about progress, be it in learning a new skill, forming a new habit, we tend to think of it as a straight line. But the thing is, it isn't. It's more like a curve which starts very, very slowly and then it shoots up. But then at a certain point, there's like almost no progress to be made because you've basically achieved mastery here. This is mastery. But even this can be inspected more closely. This progress, or so to say, the feeling of progress itself, it fluctuates. Some days after a workout, you'll feel stunning, and some days it will feel like a drain. Same with avoiding sugars. There will be days where you sleep poorly, had a few unpleasant interactions or social event, and then you give in into eating something unhealthy. And depending on your current personality, you can feel really guilty about this. So, the actual way you could really see progress or how you feel about progress looks a bit more like this. You don't feel like you got progress, then you'll have progress, but then you feel like you're stagnating. And those bits where you go down, those are the bits when you feel like you're stagnating until you reach mastery. Now, this fluctuation also applies to life in general. We might think of it like a smooth line, with it being a bit better when you're a child, then a bit less when you're working, and then a bit more when you go to pension until you turn quite old. But the reality is, there's a lot of ups and downs in life. So it looks a bit more like this. At a certain point, though, you might come into a dip. You're going down. And then what sometimes happens is that it feels like you can't get out. So you continue down and you come in this very long, deep pit of despair. And this period is what we would call, yeah, the period when you're like in a depression or when everything feels hopeless. Sometimes it's a small pit, as you can see, and sometimes it's very long. And unfortunately, that will happen. Often it's one or two events that make you go all the way downhill. Luckily, nothing's permanent. Eventually, you'll get out of it, hopefully. But the problem is that it often happens that we then get in a long time, and we don't want to have these long, deep bits of depression and then going back up for a slight bit until we hit another terrible event and we go back into a long period. The question is only how? How do we avoid falling so deep down the pit? Can we maybe stop it halfway and pick ourselves up from it? The answer is yes, we can. That is how I got out of it and I'm back making videos. But to understand how we get out of a bad spot, we first have to understand how we get into it in the first place. How we fall into a pit of despair. There are different ways how this can happen, but I see a pattern with myself. Most of the time, there's an event that disrupts our routine. It could be traumatic, it could be very busy, so you don't get the stuff that you normally get done. And then this has an effect on our performance. We might not complete goals we set out for ourselves. We engage into bad habits. The third thing that happens is we start feeling guilty about that. From here on, there are two different ways which lead to the same cycle. The first one is that your performance and happiness is now decreased by a sense of failure and of the event itself, which leads you to make even more bad choices. Think of, for instance, seeking comfort food, seeking distraction in the form of social media, loads of music or TV. And the second one is you notice that your performance is going down and that you're not feeling that great, and you decide to tackle it. You try to pull yourself together out of that pit. And often this is in a very sudden manner. So you set up goals for yourself. You're like, all right, I'm done with this. I am going to really smash it. So the next day you really try to smash it. But because you're in this state, you're not the same person you were 2 weeks ago before it all started going down. You're most likely not going to achieve those goals, and then you tend to feel really bad about it. You feel guilty about it, and then you're back to square one where you're gonna either seek for comfort behaviors or you're gonna repeat the cycle of trying to get back up again. As you can see, this whole cycle of going down and then up again and going down again is really frustrating. Now, how do we get out? Sometimes, by a miracle, we manage to get out of this pit quite quickly. We find a new burst of purpose, a change of environment, we move, or we have a new friend, or just our old friends are really supportive to us, and then that can help. But unfortunately, often we stay in prolonged periods of a depressive state. Yeah, we're basically in a depression for a while, and gradually we start to cope with this, we start to live with this, and things get back up again. But we don't want to wait for a long time. Like, be it for a miracle. No, we want to speed things up and we want to have less of these depressing episodes in our life as well. Or at least we don't want them to go to the point where they lead to. Like, if something bad happens, we don't want this to be the trigger for loads of other bad choices in our life, which are going to make us feel shit. Then the question is, how do we do that? And the thing that I finally learned applies to both getting out of the pit and avoiding falling into it first. It's very, very counterintuitive. It is take a break and go easy on yourself. When we get in a depressive state, our first reaction is, this isn't normal. Why am I here? And how do I get out? How do I stop feeling terrible? We tend to look back at the past and all the bad things that have happened or all the things we've messed up with. I tend to do that a lot. I I see all the times that I've failed or indulged into unhealthy habits or that I procrastinated, and then we start feeling shit. We don't want to feel shit. So we desperately try to avoid it, but we either go back to giving into our indulges, like eating sugary food, procrastinating, binge watching YouTube, or we try to get up back too fast and we made big to-do lists and goals to get back on track. We really try to do this. But as I mentioned before, this just drives me further into depression because both of these lead to the same unproductive phase. So the first step to actually solving this is to acknowledge that you are in an unproductive unhappy phase at the moment, and it's not only there, but it's normal. It is okay. You can't be happy clappy all the time or productive and smashing your goals all the time. This is very hard, especially for me, but we have to accept that it's all right that there are some times when stuff doesn't go well and you just have to take a break. It's all right that we're feeling sad or that we binge ate an entire bag of crisps or two. Then the second thing is we try to understand what's bugging us. Why are we feeling sad? Why do we procrastinate so much or stop doing workouts? On a piece of paper, we can then write all of that down. And now the hardest part. You don't have to do anything. So we've written it down. We don't have to do anything. It's okay to not be productive sometimes and to just relax. For a day or two, just notice those feelings and write down why you're feeling that way. Tell yourself it's okay, it's more than normal that this happens, and give yourself time to process it. Now, why do I say that? Is because when we get a better overview of our situation and all the things we wish to get back to, then we can still come to the pitfall of trying again too quickly. Out of the entire list of things you wish, we pick one thing we start to do again. If we don't manage to do that, we just lower the bar. Something very small, one little action we can do to rebuild our progress and our confidence. I suggest that you first choose positive actions that you do instead of actions that you avoid doing. Because it's much easier to say, I'm going to buy some carrots or I'm going to go for a small walk in the morning than resist grabbing a chocolate bar or waiting at the counter, because not only is it hard to resist that, you don't really feel the satisfaction of completing it because it's something you haven't done. So it's better to first focus on positive actions, things that say, look, I bought myself a healthy snack. And from there on, that will help you gain the confidence and motivation to actually also start resisting the unhealthy snacks. But we first have to start with small little steps. You'll start to feel like you have control again in your life, and bit by bit, you'll climb out of that pit of depression and start to shine again. The motivation paradox. A few weeks ago, when I was feeling down and unproductive, as you could have guessed, I went for option two. I wanted to get back on track. I wanted to do it as fast as possible. I wanted to keep on going, even though I was feeling very bad. And to do that, I was continuously listening to music. I found it hard to be bored or sad. And so whenever I was traveling or doing daily chores, I was listening to music all the time. I thought it was motivating me it was pushing me, but in a way it kind of inhibited me because without a snack or music, it was kind of dreadful just doing normal stuff. It motivated me to do a workout, but also stopped me from doing it if I didn't have something sugary before to eat as a snack, or if I didn't have music. It's just a little warning. Some tools and rewards can be a double-edged sword. Be mindful of this. Try to reduce your dependency on exterior things, things from outside for motivation or happiness over time, and only use them if you feel like you really need. Okay, so I just wanted to highlight that, but in conclusion, when we falter in a dip, we should acknowledge that and take a break with putting expectations on ourselves. Instead of trying to pull back everything together or giving up completely and just trying to avoid those negative feelings, we should try to embrace those negative feelings. Then we can slowly, not all at one go, but set little mini actions for ourselves that will improve our well-being. Small little actions that will help gain us a sense of confidence, and then we get out of that pit about controlling your life. I'm letting you know that I'm back to creating videos again. As you can see, I'll also be continuing again on my no sugar challenge. It's better to stop and then continue again than stop and never go for it again at all. So I hope it will be useful or at least fun to watch. And either way, it's great for my own accountability. See you in the next one.